Hello and welcome to today's episode of Fly to Freedom. I'm absolutely thrilled to have a guest today, Robyn Shumer. Robyn facilitates leadership development engagements at Johnson & Johnson and is a storyteller who amplifies the skills and competencies of others. She teaches the craft, enabling others to be able to share their stories because she believes people don't need to be ashamed to share the stories that shaped them. Robyn, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Julia. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh, it's absolutely great to have you. So we'll just start off with the icebreaker questions. What is your favourite smell?
My dog's breath.
Oh, wow. I've never heard someone literally. I mean, my dog's breath is quite bad. So
I know, but it just makes me feel like home. And I guess because if I can smell their breath, that means we're snuggling and I can warm with them. That is a really weird answer, but
it's weird, but I love it.
Thank you.
I've had dog's paws before, but never breath. Okay. What's the kindest thing you've done for yourself today?
Oh, good question. I would say in between work meetings, getting up and just doing a couple of stretches and expanding my lungs, breathing, and just kind of like coming home to myself that way.
Nice. I love that. It's so important, isn't it? Just to be with yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the dog subject then. If you were a dog, what breed of dog would you be?
Gosh, if you were to ask me what animal I would be, that's super easy. But dog, I guess I would be a mutt because to me, mutts are very eclectic and they're made, influenced by lots of different genes and personalities, and they're colorful.
Brilliant. I love that. My littlest dog is very definitely a mutt. She's definitely not what we ordered, but she's so lovely.
What kind of dog is she?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? She's supposed to be a border collie cross poodle. And my big dog, my older dog, definitely is. But the little one is just sort of a scruffy, cute, cuddly little article that bears no resemblance to any real breed, particularly.
I love that.
But she is lovely. Okay, when you were a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a therapist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I always, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a therapist for psychotherapy or if I wanted to be a social worker working with, foster kids, but I had a yearning to be in a role where I was helping to make people's lives a little brighter.
That's beautiful. I love that. What qualities do you most admire in others?
Kindness. Yeah.
What quality do you most admire in yourself?
I'm a good nap taker.
That's a good quality.
I think I'm kind. I think I'm a really good listener and I think I create a very safe space and container for people to be themselves and
that's so special.
let them know that I really see them.
I love
Big
that.
question.
So special. Actually, that one's not even written down. I just made it up as I went along. Okay, and two more questions, I think. If you had a magic wand and you could wave it and make one thing happen. It could be to you, to the world, to anything, but it was just one thing. What would you do?
I would not want any human being to go to bed hungry.
Yeah,
It's interesting, like, having a history of an eating disorder, food insecurity for others is like a major trigger for me. So I would eradicate world hunger.
Oh, really great use of your magic wand. And last question, what would you like people to take away from this episode?
I think that so today is the day that my memoir comes out. It is available today, and when I think about talking with you and connecting with your audience, I think that I want people to know that I wrote my memoir, and I do the work that I do to offer a sense of connection to people who might be struggling with their own challenges. And, it doesn't have to be an eating disorder, but something, mental health related. And that my journey, which includes a lot of darkness, I don't share the dark periods in my book to dwell on the struggles, but to highlight that it's possible to find meaning and healing through perseverance and effort, I think would be my key message.
That's a very important message. Would you be happy to share a little bit about your story with us?
Yeah. So I started with anorexia when I was 8 years old. And it was a really long time ago. I mean, it was the 80s, 1980s. And have been inpatient and was very influenced in the 80s by the messages that young girls were receiving culturally. And it was really clear to me when I was a little girl that in order to have any value or currency as a female, I needed to look a certain way. And then combine that with kind of a toxic home environment. And, it's a great recipe for developing, an eating disorder. And I've been in therapy basically since I was 8 years old.
Do you mind me asking how old you are now?
I just turned 50.
Oh, same.
Oh, isn't it great to be 50?
Wonderful. 50 and free, yes.
And I have to tell you, Julia, since I turned 50, my symptoms have decreased dramatically. I'm in recovery. I say people can be in recovery. I don't say recovered because you never know what life is going to throw at you. But since I've turned 50, my recovery has been like solid. So I started when I was 8, hospitalized when I was 12. And, in the 80s, nobody knew what anorexia was. The only other anorexic that my pediatrician knew of was Karen Carpenter, who, had died.
Yes.
From consequences of her eating disorder. And so, I was hauled off to an inpatient hospital. And I still have a lot of anger about that experience. It was very traumatic. And my entire childhood and teens, I was the identified patient. I was always the one in therapy, never my family. And, we know that anorexia especially responds really well to family-based treatment.
Yes.
And then as I got older, it morphed into binging, major over exercise, abusing diet pills and laxatives, and experimenting with every kind of workout routine that there is or was. And I write about this in my book. Something that really helped me was the idea of eating for energy. So eating so I can be the best mom and the best wife and the best friend and the best worker. Not eating so I can be skinny or have my arms look a certain way. And once I wrapped my head around that mindset, I felt like things really improved for me.
I love that. Yeah, different things work for different people, don't they? And I love that you found that because, yeah, that's a really powerful, I suppose, mantra almost, isn't it? To be saying that.
Yeah. And I do. I think everybody finds that, like, I'm sure you have your one thing, right?
Yes, self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I started to give myself the love that I'd always been searching for externally, the acceptance that I'd always been searching for externally. When I started to give that to myself and stopped searching everywhere outside of me and went inwards, that's when things really started to change for me.
It's nice.
So, thank you very much for sharing that with us. Your mantra is don't be ashamed to share the stories that shaped you. So tell me more about this. How did you come to it and how do you live into it?
Great question. So in 2018, I gave a TED Talk called What's Your Story? And it was all about what would it be like if we were more open with our colleagues at work? You know, and this is before pandemic when everybody was still working in an office most days of the week. And I just began to wonder, like, if ever, imagine that we had like our issues, our baggage, on our office doors or like cubicle walls so that people could know like what we're bringing into the workplace. So my talk was about that. And I shared about my eating disorder. I shared about infertility. And I shared about after 15 years of infertility, suddenly getting pregnant. And then I asked the audience, like, why am I telling you all this? And then go into this curiosity about what if we were all more vulnerable with each other. And when I delivered my TED Talk, I, out of the blue, just came up with, don't be ashamed to share the stories that shaped you. It literally just came to me. I wasn't looking for it, but it just offered itself to me. And I tell people that preparing for and delivering that TED Talk has been amongst the most helpful things I've done for my well-being. And it got me to thinking, well, if it can be so effective and impactful for me, why not others? And so then the methodology that I went through to develop my TED Talk, I started doing it, teaching it to other people. And just telling them, don't be ashamed to share the stories that shaped you. You are this perfect human being who you are right now because of all of your lived experience. And I feel like when I got in front of, my anxiety, my depression, and wasn't afraid to share it, things just got so much easier for me.
It's just so true, isn't it? That particularly eating disorders thrive in secrecy. And it feels so isolating because you feel like you're the only one.
And, when you realize you're not alone, it's like, wow, it's so comforting and validating.
It is, yeah, because we look around at the world around us, particularly with social media and everything, and see all these perfect lives. And the reality is that everyone's a bit fucked up in some way, really. Everyone has some issues or other. Everybody has some anxieties or some habits they can't break or some addictions or some unhealthy coping mechanism, and we all feel so alone in them.
And I'll tell you, Julia, like getting on that red dot and giving that talk in front of 1,800 people, my mailbox, was like flooded with people just thanking me for getting up there and spilling my beans. And, everybody had, it connected with everybody in some way. So everybody's got a secret, right? Well,
Yeah.
And so I find that mantra, don't be ashamed to share the stories that shaped you, to be so liberating and freeing.
That's amazing. I love the quote, I'm recovering loudly to stop others from dying quietly.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that.
I really ought to know who said it, but I can't put my finger on it right now. But it's an incredible quote. And one of the reasons I started this podcast, to share my story and for other people to share their stories and to just help people feel seen and less alone.
And like you said, anorexia specifically is a very isolating, secret disorder. I love that you did that. I love that. I say this often. I love that you gave your pain a purpose.
Thank you.
It's a real gift.
It's a gift to me as well. It's not just me giving a gift. It is a gift to me because it's helped me grow as a person, become more fulfilled than I ever believed possible. And my recovery journey turned into a discovery journey where I just learned new things about myself and how to be with myself and how to accept every aspect of me. Every time life throws something at me, because life is always going to do that, right? And every time that happens, I get to step back and notice all the different parts of me and notice which parts saying which.
Is there a mantra or like a breathing exercise? When life throws you a curveball in that moment, what's your process for,
For me personally, as I mentioned earlier, I've got 2 dogs and I love flowing water. We have a beautiful river and water meadows near us. And I just go down to the river and I just sit and I feel the wind on my skin. I normally take my shoes off and feel the grass under my feet. And I listen to the birds. I watch the water flowing. And I just completely ground myself in nature. And then I become so present that I can then just step back out of my thoughts, because we're not our thoughts, we're just the observer of our thoughts. And I can start observing.
Yep.
And noticing the different parts. And then if the parts that are shouting the loudest are negative, then I can bring in the self-compassion, the self-love, and I can be kind to myself and reassure myself.
Mm-hmm. So you go inward and you find you're able to ground yourself and give yourself that sustenance and nurturing that you need. That is fantastic. That is a great coping mechanism.
Thank you. Also journaling. Journaling is so powerful to take the thoughts out of your head because they can spiral, can't they? They can become bigger and go off in lots of different directions and twist and warp and go out of shape, and you start believing all sorts of things. And so when you take them out of your head and put them onto paper, you can then look at them from a distance, and they can't twist and warp on paper. Right. And then you can start asking them questions.
Yes. Yeah. I haven't felt that in many, many, many years, thank goodness. But I remember when I would say, oh, I feel fat, I would ask fat a million questions like, who are you? Why are you here? What do you want me to know? How do I get rid of you?
Yeah.
The questioning is a really good technique.
So, when did your vision of yourself begin to change, and what things helped you heal? And when did you first realize you had a talent and passion for helping others?
I think if I go by decades, each decade has kind of like a flavor. So, you know, in my 20s, when I was in college and grad school, I volunteered a lot. Whether it was for something for the environment, usually with people. And then in my 30s, I got certified to teach yoga. And I really think that the universe had me become a yoga teacher literally to be in service to everybody. My classes were very inclusive. Every class was all levels. I wanted everybody to feel successful. And, back when I was in my 30s, yoga teachers were doing hands-on assists. And I think that humans are touch deprived.
Absolutely, yes, especially people living in a restrictive eating disorder because
yes,
they isolate themselves.
Exactly. So I had a little system when I would teach. I would give everybody a card with a thumbs up or a no thank you on the back so they could choose if they wanted hands-on assists or not. Everybody always wanted them. So I feel like in my 30s, I was really in service to others through yoga and human touch. And then in my 40s, that's when I really found my leadership voice and think I really developed like how to listen to people and how to be with them and hear what they're not saying and make connections for people. I think that's when I really kind of became the storyteller, being able to help people tell their stories and then obviously tell mine.
So you've written your memoir, which is called Bones, Anorexia, Anxiety, and My Path to Self-Love. And you said that's out today, did you?
Yeah, today's the publication date.
How exciting. And where can people get hold of that?
They can get it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, like all of the traditional online retailers. And then anybody that wants the audiobook, wherever they normally buy audiobooks.
Oh, fantastic. That's
And
so
there's
exciting.
I do have a book guide discussion in it. And, something that I'd like to offer to readers is, if you want to have me help facilitate, a book club discussion about the book, either with the questions in the book or your own, I would love to be a part of that journey with people.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. So the memoir begins with you as a young girl, aged 8, and you were greatly influenced by the messages sent to young girls in the 80s. And oh my goodness, I remember them so much, what with the waif look and all that sort of thing. Can you tell us a bit more about what those messages were?
Well, I have an older brother. He's only 4 years older, but he's a heterosexual man who had posters in his bedroom of, supermodels. And, my every February, the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition came out. It actually came out on my birthday every year. And, between those messages that I was getting from men in my life, whom I was close with, what I saw on TV, I don't know if in where you live, they had the show The Love Boat.
And not that I recall, but I was quite restricted on what I was allowed to watch.
Oh, that's probably not a bad thing. But you know, I was inundated with messages about I have to look a certain way. I wasn't inundated with messages about this is how you stand on your 2 feet, Robyn Shumer, and you will become a leader. And I say in my book, you know, I was bombarded with these images of like Heather Locklear and Brooke Shields and whomever. And at the same time, there were women accomplishing enormous things. Like the first woman won the Iditarod Alaskan dog sled race. The first female was appointed chief of police in Chicago. Like there were great monumental things happening, but I didn't have access to that information.
We even had a female prime minister actually when I was a child.
So,
Margaret Thatcher, the Iron
oh,
Lady.
that's right. And you know, I was obsessed with Princess Diana. She's a big part of my book.
Is she?
Yes.
She had disordered eating problems as well, didn't she?
Mm-hmm.
And had
Yeah, I mean,
bitter mold. She had a lot of pressure on her.
she had a lot of pressure. And I write in my book about, you know, on Saturdays, my family would go to the shopping mall and I would just go to the bookstore and sit on the floor looking at the royal wedding album. And then going home and like comparing like what I thought I saw in the book to what I saw in me. And so Princess Diana would feel terrible knowing that like I compared myself to her, but you know, that's somebody I compared myself to.
Yeah. So was that the main thing? Was there a particular thing that significantly impacted you personally?
Great question. So just to give you some background, I grew up with a very controlling mother.
Mm-hmm.
Everything had to look a certain way, and everything was about appearances.
Do you think that was part of the generation? Because yeah, it was all what will the neighbours think, what will other people think? You have to do this so people think good of you. Even down to, I remember my dad telling me people would judge me on how shiny my shoes were.
I believe it. Yeah, I know. When I had my unexpected daughter, my mother wanted me to get a new toilet seat in our main bathroom because she thought that our toilet seat was like off colored. I mean, like crazy stuff. And, but anyway, when I was in 4th grade, my best friend, Michelle Jordan, had the sexy new teacher from the Philippines. And I had the old lady that was retiring in 5 minutes. And that year, Julia, I was so excited to bring cupcakes to Michelle's class for my birthday. Like I couldn't sleep the night before, just so excited. And I knocked on the door. A kid opened it. I walk into the classroom and Miss Reyes, this, ideal standard of beauty, says, "Oh my God, Robyn, it's your birthday." And I felt elated. Oh my God, this ideal standard of beauty knows my name. She recognizes, she sees me. And then Miss Reyes looked me up and down and she settled her gaze at my ankles and she said, "Robyn, you have elephant legs." And I was devastated.
Of course you are.
This was 1,000 years ago, and I still get chills when I tell the story. That was the pivotal moment when all of this went into hyperdrive. And I was mortified. I was embarrassed. I went into the girls' room and I cried. And then Operation Anorexia. And I didn't know I had never heard of anorexia, but Operation Be As Small As Possible went into, hyperdrive. And Julia, it wasn't until sophomore year of college that I realized what she meant. my tights were sagging at the ankles because I was already so skinny.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Hmm.
Isn't it amazing how our child brain can take things?
And distort them.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if Miss Reyes will read my book or not.
So, on that sort of subject and how our young minds are so easily influenced and delicate and they need to be nurtured, do you have any recommendations to parents for things they can do to help encourage their children to accept themselves fully and not feel less than from all the conditioning and diet culture bullshit that's out there?
I know. Um, well, I think it needs to start with the parents. They need to feel that security in themselves and not model any of the behavior and, not have good foods and bad foods and not say the word diet, not focus on weight and body. They really need to embody and put into the universe how they want their kids to be. They need to model it.
Yeah.
I know my daughter's 9. I am so careful. This is really cute. When she was, maybe 2, she was in the bathtub and she had a bunch of Barbies. And one of the Barbies was like in a fancy dress. And my daughter Amelia said to me, "Why is Barbie dressed up?" And I said, "Because she won the science fair and she's going to get her prize." I just wanted to be so mindful of not making it about beauty.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant because it's everywhere, isn't it? I mean, it's just indoctrinated into us from so young with Disney.
Oh,
All the baddies, the ugly sisters, the people who you're meant to not like are either in bigger bodies or they don't have perfect features. And all the ones you're supposed to love have these incredible narrow waists, wear beautiful dresses, perfect hair, perfect features, normally a tiny little tilt on the end of their nose to make it look cute.
it's ridiculous. Have you, what improvements, if any, have you seen in how our culture thinks about women from when we were kids to now?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think women have been encouraged to do more, to be shown that we are not inferior to men. But even though we're encouraged to do more and to be equal, we still have to do the old roles as well. Which just makes women exhausted, to be honest, and feel like they can't do everything because we can't.
We
No
can't.
one can do everything. So I think that is a positive and a negative at the same time. Generally, I mean, there's always stereotypes, isn't there? But anyone can do anything, really, whatever they set their mind to. If it's the passion and it lights them up and it makes them feel good and it makes them feel happy, then pursue it.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're going to be successful in doing what you love. I think there's certainly a huge amount more acceptance around gay, lesbian, bisexual, LB. I don't know all the right.
I know.
That's probably something that I would benefit from brushing up on. But there's a lot more acceptance in different types of people. I think fat phobia's got a lot worse. I think there's a lot more focus on it, and I think people are shamed,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a big problem. What differences have you seen?
In terms of opportunity, I agree with you that, women have more equal opportunities to be successful outside of the home. And to your point, men have not, I mean, my husband's amazing. He does everything, but in general, and I'm making an assumption, don't cancel me, anybody, but it seems like men haven't caught up. So there isn't that, equality yet. But in terms of body image, I think it's the same. And I think it's worse because of social media.
Certainly with filters and everything as well. What we see on social media is rarely real.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't think it's helped with isolation either.
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean, the loneliness, it's an epidemic.
Mm. And comparison, people compare themselves so much.
I'm always reporting different advertisements that I get on social as inappropriate. Anything about a diet, I report as inappropriate.
Good for you. Well done. We all need to do things like that. Show them that it's not okay. So you discuss anxiety in your book.
Mm-hmm.
How do you believe anxiety and eating disorders are intertwined?
I don't know which came first. What do you like? Does anxiety cause the eating disorder? Does the eating disorder cause the anxiety? I think that they're so enmeshed. Oh, and I never thought about the letters in the word. They share the A and X. I don't know if that means anything. I think that people turn towards disordered eating or substance abuse because they think that it will help manage their anxiety. But we know it's just like a dog chasing its tail.
Absolutely.
I think anxiety, depression, OCD, and specifically anorexia, they all live together in a one-room apartment.
Egging each other on. Yeah, I think obviously there's always exceptions, but I personally believe that an eating disorder comes from a place of not feeling good enough as you are, which of course causes you anxiety.
And then when you starve yourself and you have anorexia brain.
There's so much anxiety, it's extreme. You're just living in the survival response all the time. Mm-hmm. Not even living, actually. You're existing.
You're existing.
In a kind of twisted Groundhog Day.
Anorexia is the hardest, not job, but I mean, it's a full-time job.
Yes, it is. It's certainly full-time in your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even really get respite at night because you don't really sleep very well.
Mm-hmm.
So what steps do you think people can take to start to address both anorexia and anxiety? Or do you think one needs to come first?
No, I think that they're synergistic. I think they are attached at the hip. And, I would say to an adult that is noticing disordered eating or anxiety, so many employers offer through like their employee assistance programs, free counseling sessions. there are so many resources available online to educate yourself and maybe take that first step towards getting help. I do believe in therapy. And, there's so many different modalities. Talk therapy is not for everybody. Maybe they need CBT or something else, but accepting that everybody has an ism and you are not alone. And it might feel like darkness, but darkness can lead to light.
The sun always comes out after a storm.
Yep.
It might take a while, but it's always going to come back out again.
Yep. And for parents, find if you can, if you have the resources, family-based therapy treatment, because the kid with the eating disorder or the substance abuse disorder always becomes the identified patient. And
Yes.
it's a
like
family system.
Yeah. I don't believe in eating disorder or any of these problems, illnesses are actually the individual's fault to begin with. At all. They're just coping in the best way they know how.
But how does a little kid I had never even heard of anorexia. I just want to know what made me starve myself. I had a controlling mother. She liked to feed me. I could reject what she was giving me. I get all of that. But how do people choose their vice? I'm very interested in that. Why do some people choose cutting or drugs or alcohol?
Escape. Which helps them feel escape the most would be my opinion on that. I know for me, I wanted to be small and not seen. And that felt the safest thing for me to do. The smaller I was, the less seen I felt I'd be. And then the added benefit that came in was my emotions weren't acceptable. I wasn't permitted to have emotions, particularly, certainly never a negative emotion. I wasn't allowed to cry. I wasn't allowed to get angry. And when I started restricting to be smaller and not seen, I discovered that I didn't have to feel either. And so to me, I was winning. I thought, wow, I'm really good at this. And so then you start getting the dopamine hits. You start feeling like you're achieving something. I've never cut, but I assume it feels like a release and you get a dopamine hit. All substances you get a dopamine hit with. So it's that feel good. And it numbs out reality.
It does.
And reality can be a really painful place to be for a child.
It can be a real bitch.
It really can. That's why we just need to really work on showing the world that nobody needs to do anything to be good enough. We're all born good enough.
We're all good enough.
And beauty isn't a look either.
It's not. It's your soul. It's how you show up in the world.
Beauty to me is, your light that you're shining on others, how you can make somebody feel good. That's beautiful.
Agreed.
Okay, so that moves me. I've got one more question. So that moves me really beautifully, actually, into my next question on self-love practices, because you write in fact, even the title of your book is about self-love as well.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have some practical strategies that you recommend for cultivating self-love in the recovery process?
Always be kind to yourself if you can. Always assume that the people around you have your best in mind. I know, like with me, part of my anxiety is I ruminate about what somebody says or doesn't say, and then I make up a whole narrative about it. And so inviting yourself to stop the narrative. And what I do about 700 times a day is I'll do like box breathing. Or there's something for me about putting my hands just on my chest and taking 5 really intentional breaths. I find it very grounding, and whatever that stress was or whatever that negative thought was, after a couple of breaths, it usually goes away. So being really kind to myself is important. Reminding myself that at the end of the day, I've been a great daughter. I've been a great mother. I've been a great wife and friend.
I love that. And yeah, it's so important, because we can be so cruel to ourselves.
We are
critical.
ruder to ourselves than we would be to our worst enemy.
Absolutely, 100%. I would never have treated anybody the way I treated myself. And actual fact, I think I would, if I had treated somebody else how I treated myself, I think I would have been arrested and put in prison. Because it was abuse. And nobody deserves that. And we have to spend the rest of our lives with ourselves. There's no getting away. So why be mean?
Why be mean?
It's so much nicer when you're kind to yourself. And a lot of the time, I think people are mean to themselves when they're trying to run away from their feelings. Because feelings are uncomfortable, right? Particularly negative ones.
Yeah.
But one thing my coach, Victoria, when I was working with her, taught me is that all a feeling wants is to be felt. And the worst thing that's going to happen is that you will feel the feeling. And then it will go away.
And then you can move on.
Yeah. It's only when you don't feel them that they build up and they build up and they build up, and we store them. They don't go anywhere. We store them in our bodies, and they, over time, poisonous.
They metastasize, and 100%.
So everybody, every single person listening to this podcast has done hard things in their life. Every single person listening has 100% success rate of getting through each day.
100%.
So you can all do hard things, and you can feel a feeling, and then it will go.
And then it will go. And then you can pat yourself on the back and be like, I did that.
Yes, the self-celebration, self-praise is everything. Because we thrive on praise, and that's what gives us the dopamine hit. That's what replaces that hit from the restriction, that hit from the addiction. When we start giving ourselves praise and love. our brains light up with it. You can actually see it on brain scans.
Mm-hmm.
And we can all do that because we do it for other people all the time.
Mm-hmm. Such great stuff.
So important to share these conversations.
Honest conversations about lived experience. And I really do believe that sharing our lived experience, especially the ugly stuff, is going to make everybody stronger.
Yes.
And you won't be alone.
Absolutely. And it makes it easier to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. I'm in a Facebook group now. And I rely on them so heavily for support. You know, we're all in this group because we've got the same lived experience of having a narcissistic mother. And it's like amazing to have that camaraderie and people's hands on your back.
Yeah.
And you
that's
can get
that's one of the beautiful things about social media.
Yeah, it's the one good thing. And then you realize you're not alone.
It's so great to feel seen, to feel heard,
Mm-hmm.
and to know that you're not alone, and to know that other people have been where you are and come out the other side. That it is possible to recover. Even, I mean, how long were you actively in the eating disorder for?
Decades.
Yeah, I think mine was about 40 years.
Did you say 40?
40, yes.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, here we are.
Here we are, thriving.
Grateful for every day.
Living full lives.
Feeling. That was one thing actually that really surprised me when I started feeling. I was so scared of feeling the negative emotions. I did not realize that in all those years that I had restricted all those negative emotions, I'd been restricting the positive ones too.
Interesting.
Because you can't selectively restrict your emotions.
That is a really great insight. So you were just so buried in your disorder, giving all of your attention to it.
Yeah, I was existing in grey.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel negative emotions now, and I cry, and sometimes I feel really shit. And that's part of being human. And I feel so much joy and so much love and so much gratitude and excitement, and I play and I laugh. I mean, yesterday I went with my next door neighbour with the dogs to the river because it was super hot here for England anyway, and my dogs are both black and fluffy. And so we went to the river and played with them, and I took tennis balls in the river, and my dogs are not, I mean, they're great, but they will bring the tennis ball to like 2 foot away from the edge of the water, so you cannot quite get it. You have to get wet to get the ball back. So I just had shorts on and flip-flops that I could wear in the water because it's really stony. And my next door neighbour and I were in the water throwing the balls with the dogs. And eventually the dogs got bored, and we just ended up splashing each other and throwing the balls at each other and playing catch and being like children. And we just laughed, and it was so much fun and so wonderful. And it was amazing. And I would never have done anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. When you're knee deep in your anorexia, there is no fun. There's
No,
nothing fun. Nothing.
no. And it was brilliant. We were so wet. It was literally dripping wet. And it was amazing. And honestly, just laughed so much. And my neighbour's 16-year-old daughter was stood at the edge looking at us saying, I don't believe you too. And it was
That is
wonderful.
wonderful.
And that is my life now. I get to be silly. I get to play.
I have a friend who dedicates an hour a day to play.
That's beautiful. I love
Yeah,
that.
we need to re-engineer it back into our lives.
Absolutely. Play is so important. And to play like children.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Especially those of us who spent half our childhood living in an eating disorder anyway.
It's been interesting parenting kids and especially now having a daughter. And yeah, I often feel like I'm experiencing what being a 9-year-old should have been like.
Nice. I love that. That's beautiful. Is there anything that we haven't spoken about that you would like to share with the audience?
Don't ever give up. I dealt with this for a really long time, and you and I are both living examples that you can live productive, healthful lives with a mental health condition. And you have to address it. Don't be afraid to address it, because the sooner that you address it, the sooner you'll get relief. And I've got this workshop that I do, leading with impact through storytelling. Anybody that might be interested in learning how to tell their story, let me know.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. I will include the link for that. Is that your website address? Mm-hmm. I will include that in the show notes.
Yeah.
And we've already spoken about where people can get your book. Do you want to remind us of the title of it again?
Oh, my book. Yes.
Yes. Have you actually got a physical copy there?
I do. It's in my other room. And the title has changed so many times that I have to look it up. So my book is called Bones: Anorexia, Anxiety, and My Path to Self-Love. And I'll tell you a funny story about the cover. The cover is a pressed flower arrangement of a ballerina.
Ah.
And I don't know if you probably can't see it. And
No.
I saw this at a gallery, and I immediately had to have it. And it was called Whirly Twirly. And I just thought, like, I'm Whirly Twirly. I want to be Whirly Twirly. So I bought it, and then through a mutual friend became friends with the artist and showed it to a very good friend of mine. And she said, Robyn, don't you think it's interesting that you actually bought a piece of art that looks like an anorexic? Because the ribs are ferns. And I said, oh, that is so interesting. That definitely has to be the cover of my book. And it is.
I love that. The universe just sends us the things we need when we need them. We just have to stop fighting it and be open.
Be open. Thank you so much. This was such a great chat.
It was a wonderful conversation. I loved chatting to you. It's been wonderful to meet you. And I am beyond sure that you sharing your story is going to help other people, because it always does.
That's my wish.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much, listeners, for tuning in again. Love having you here week after week. Please do remember to rate the podcast 5 stars so that we can get it out to more people. And I've been reliably informed that you can now put reviews and comments and things on Spotify as well as Apple and YouTube or wherever it is that you watch or listen to the podcast. So please do. Love to hear from you. And I'm going to include all the links in the show notes, including the link to your TED Talk, if you can send that to me.
So if you go to my website, Robyn Shumer, ROBYNSHUMER.com, there is a tab that says speakers, and my TED Talk is there. It's not me on the red circle, but it's me giving the same talk.
Amazing.
Because of licensing, I'm not allowed to post it.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah. Strange rules, aren't they? Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everybody. It's been wonderful. And Robyn, thank you so much for being an amazing.
Thank you for your hard work.